says, I'm going to do a thought leadership video on vocabulary. Yet here we are. So if you are watching this, you want to watch this. So I'm going to give you as much value as I possibly can with some takeaway points that will help you out down the line, or help your kids out, or help your employees out, because we're doing some leadership coaching these days as well. So, did you know the Alaskans have 50 words for snow? And you wonder why the rest of the world hates us. 50 words for snow, all meaning a little different thing. So the average American, their vocabulary is now 2,000 words. 20 years ago, the average vocabulary was 3,000 words. If you follow what we do at the end of this video, you can double that in a number of years. And great things happen when you do. So I'm going to start with a story or two. In high school, words were extremely important because we all had to take something called the SAT exam to get into college. And the SAT exam at that time would have a series of questions, multiple choice questions. Chicken is to egg as mother is to child. That would be probably the closest answer. But they would use words that you had never seen before. So we were all, those of us who were trying to get into a good college, we were all trying to learn new words to improve our vocabulary. And we did it a number of ways. And what I used to do is when I read a book and I didn't know a word, I would have a dictionary next to me, and I would have to look up the word in the dictionary. Really old-fashioned. It would take a minute. You guys know what you can do right now? You can keep a list of them during the day, and then Google it while you're watching Netflix later. And use it in a sentence, and that word will be yours. It takes you a total of 10 seconds. You are increasingly distracted because you are doing something else at the same time, but you will still be improving your vocabulary. Old school, really, really hard. The other thing that I figured out after college was that I became a letter carrier. And probably about the 30th of each month, we would get trays and trays and trays and trays of a magazine called Reader's Digest. And Reader's Digest had a little section in it called Increase Your Word Power, where every month they would give you 10 words that you may or may not know, give you the definitions, show you how to use them in a sentence, and encourage you to use them over the next week and make them yours. And after, besides the fact that it was a pain delivering all those magazines all the time. Depending on the block I was on, if I was in a good neighborhood, 10 people would get that magazine. If I was in a bad neighborhood, 2 people would get that magazine. And I started putting together that in the good neighborhoods, the people who got that magazine had nicer cars in the driveway. Same house. But that vocabulary, that learning about something along the way, was serving them in work and life. In the poorer neighborhoods, those were the kids who went to college. There is a direct correlation. And it's kind of interesting how we don't have Reader's Digest anymore for the common population. I think they still make a large type version for the senior citizens. I do not get that. I could, but I don't. So very cool. So here's what I learned later in life when I went from delivering mail to becoming an entrepreneur. I had to learn a whole new vocabulary. And I dug in and I learned what phrases and words meant, and I started using them in conversations. And nobody who wasn't an entrepreneur got it. And then I figured out when I started giving speeches that even some of the entrepreneurs didn't get it. They would come up to me after talking and ask me, what's a lead magnet? Or something of that nature. I'll circle back to that at the end. And I was always kind of curious about that. So here's the person who actually had, the inquisitiveness, there's a word for you, the ability to want to learn, come up to me and I would explain to her what a lead magnet was. But think about all the other people who were too ashamed, who I made to feel less than because I was using words that they didn't use. So as I progressed in my entrepreneurial journey, let's call it business journey for those of you who aren't entrepreneurs, I started using common words. I started actually losing a little bit of my vocabulary because it's just like all the other things in our complex brain. If we don't use something regularly, we sometimes forget what it means, or even worse, how to pronounce it. My wife is brilliant. When I mispronounce a word, she gives me a look like you wouldn't believe. And my brain had re-engineered the way that I had thought that word sounded. And again, I now go to Google and have Google read me back my speeches before I give them to see if I have a word or two that I am mispronouncing. And also, it gets me to go back and take out some of those 25-cent words and put in a couple, words that everybody can understand. So we don't want to make people feel less than, especially if they're buying from us or following us, because it's difficult. As I said before, we used to have average vocabulary of 3,000 words. We're down to 2,000 words as Americans. Other countries, other societies, way ahead of us. And eventually will surpass us because they have better descriptives that more people can understand. So, now, let's circle back. A lead magnet. A lead magnet is something of value that you give a prospective customer to help them with their current problem. Then they might want to work with you further. That's a lead magnet. When I give away 8 questions that everyone should ask their employees or their children, that's a lead magnet. If you ask those 8 questions, you will get enough information to improve your organization, to improve other people's lives. So that's a very, very cool thing. The other suggestion I dropped earlier is keep your Google lists. And I've talked about Google lists before, but I'll do it again. You keep a little list in your phone. It's called Lists. It's already in your apps. And you open it up and you put down the word that you didn't quite understand today, that's somebody important to you. It could be your boss. It could be your wife. It could be a customer. And then you at the end of the day, you might have 2 or 3 words, and you Google them. And you get the pronunciation, and you get the definition and how you use it in a sentence, and then you try to use it once a day for a week. That is my discussion on vocabulary. I know this is not going to be one of my top videos, but that's okay. I'm here to help everybody. I'm Coach Ron. Have a great day.